We are beginning a new message series this morning called Focused, and it comes from a key phrase in Hebrews chapter 12, meaning to keep our eyes on Jesus, or keeping our eyes on Jesus. I think the NIV says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. And this phrase, keeping our eyes on Jesus, comes from a single Greek word, meaning that in some way we need to turn our eyes away from those things that distract us, away from those things that might get in our way, so that we can focus on just one thing. And you know how difficult that can be sometimes in life because of all these other things going on in life. It's hard. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to let things come in the way of other things. And so that's what we're going to be dealing with when we face difficult situations. The goal is, how can I learn how to take the focus off of these trying circumstances or these rough situations, and how can I keep my eyes focused on Jesus and continue to have the faith to keep going? And so we don't, and the writer of Hebrews encourages us to do this, to focus on Jesus so that we don't lose heart and so that we don't give up, that we just keep going, we persevere, but also so that we may encourage each other and that we can just help each other to keep going and run the race that God has for us. And I know in this room, many of us, if not all of us, have been through some trying circumstances in our lives. Some of you have dealt with cancer, death, divorce, unruly, misbehaving kids, financial strains. I know the list can go on and on. There's a lot of things I think in this room many of us have dealt with in life, and maybe you feel kicked in the gut and you feel broken, and sometimes we just feel like giving up. With that in mind, with what we've got going on in our lives, I do want to talk about a number of weeks ago now, a number of our church families got together and went over and volunteered at the Haven of Rest in Akron, the homeless shelter over there. And that's why you see a number of us wearing these shirts this morning. And I thought, if you had any questions, maybe ask one of these people, have one of these shirts on. But we're all kind of standing in solidarity this morning, letting you know, hey, we had a great time. But we went out, of course, to help out at the Haven of Rest. And when you really think about people that go through trying times, that really have it difficult in their lives, the homeless come to mind, don't they? I mean, we see them all around the city here in Akron, standing on the street corners, holding signs. And you know they're down on their luck because a lot of these men and women who are homeless, they don't have anywhere to turn. They don't have family that will reach out to them. Some of their families have disowned them. Some of them just simply don't have family that they can go to and find support and help. And so a lot of them are wondering, when am I going to eat next? Where am I going to live? How am I going to get through this part of my life? And that's where the Haven of Rest comes in to play here. The Haven of Rest, I was really impressed with them because they are there to help these men and women not just get through, but really to train them how to be successful in life. And they give them spiritual training. They're in the Bible. They go to chapel services every day. And of course, they receive a meal. And so the goal is this is temporary, that we can train you how to actually hold a job and get out into public and do life, so that you can be successful. And so a lot of us we had this idea, we're going to go down to the Haven of Rest, we're going to serve, and we are going to be a blessing to them, right? That's what I thought. This is an opportunity. I can sit down with these people and we can talk, and I can share, I can drop some knowledge on them, and really inspire them, right? But as you know, when you volunteer in positions like that, a lot of times you're the one who walks away feeling blessed. You know what I mean? It's just amazing. And so we put together a little video, and I want you to take a look at, this is just interviews of those who were involved. So let's take a look at this video.
But I want to give as much time as I can when I can and be generous as possible.
Which it really showed, like, because they really liked the cards, and it showed that it really was important, even to us. It seemed so small, but then they were all like eating breakfast, and they were just looking at the cards, and you could tell that it made their day.
They were very happy to have us there.
By coloring pictures to brighten their day when they were doing lunch or dinner.
I was surprised at how much more goes on there than just feeding them, because that's kind of what I thought.
I didn't realize how many opportunities they had and like how Christian based they were. I think it was cool that everyone was involved through their chapel. I didn't realize how much they actually did.
And some of them, I mean, they read and study the Bible more than most of us do. I mean, they do devotions before breakfast, chapel before lunch, chapel before dinner every day. And so it's, teaching them spiritually as well.
That I could do more.
But it reminded me that at any moment we all, or anyone, could be in that situation.
Rest.
I think to me it was that they were in like tiny totes, like that's all their belongings. My stuff wouldn't be able to even fit in one tiny little tote.
Yeah, it definitely made me see like how fortunate I am.
There to do.
To help other people.
We do have a good life. It doesn't take a lot of money or resources to help people.
The biggest thing that stood out to me was that they not only help people in their present situation with food and clothes, but also for their futures.
That they help so many people.
Like, I have a phone and a roof over my head and more food than I need and a lot of clothes, and they don't. They have they're fed and they have a roof over their heads, but it's not their own.
And I like that we as a church are now starting to look for ways in our community, and we could be missionaries in Barberton and around Barberton. We don't have to travel overseas. There's people in need right here.
And I think we should be doing this at least once a month, something like this.
And I know we will be going back to help out.
Continuing to serve really means seeking out opportunities to reach out outside of the community we have here in church, whether it's with the Haven of Rest or another organization or even just in the communities that we live in.
Isn't that cool? Just knowing that I think all of us that went down there really give us a new perspective on life. That, I know we got it bad sometimes, but there are people that definitely have it a lot worse. And I always say, it could be a lot worse than what I'm going through right now. There's no doubt. But I don't want to. How many did we end up having going, Dave? Do you know offhand? 22, 23 people went down. So I'd love to see that number increase, and we're looking at maybe what we can do more in the future with these guys. And if you'd love to be involved, let me know, let Dave know, or one of these people with these t-shirts on this morning, let them know if you'd like to be involved in that. But I don't want to downplay what you may be going through right now, or, as they always say, you're either coming out of a storm, or you're in the middle of a storm, or you're getting ready to enter a storm, and things are going to get tough. And if you're in the middle of one right now, I don't want to downplay that, because what you're going through, it's real, it's difficult, and you're wondering how you're going to get through, whether it is the cancer. You might be struggling in your marriage and you're ready to give up, or you might be losing in a losing battle with cancer, or maybe you're struggling with an eating disorder and you feel like a prisoner in your own body, and maybe you feel undervalued or underappreciated, or maybe it's just that, you just want to know what God wants for your life. And you're just seeking His will and His purpose, and you're waiting to hear from Him, and you don't even get that still small voice. You get silence, and you're just wondering, what in the world am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose in life? And so I think when we go through these situations, what we need to hear is really someone with a strong voice in our lives telling us, don't give up. Right? Don't give in. Keep fighting the fight. Keep running the race. Because with God's help and with God's power, you can overcome. You can live to fight another day, and He can get you through that. And so what we need is not somebody to just come and hug us. We need somebody to say, man, pick up the bootstraps and keep going, right? And that's what we want to learn how to do in this series called Focused. We want to find strength in God, and we want to find a way to have faith in God that perseveres even through those trying and difficult circumstances. Okay, so I don't know if you've turned there or not. Hebrews chapter 12, it'll be on the screen. But these are the 3 verses that we're going to be looking at throughout this message series, and we'll focus on a little section each week. But here's what it says. The first 3 verses, it says, therefore, since we also have such a large crowd of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, so that you don't grow weary, and so that you don't what? Give up, throw in the towel, quit. And so no doubt the church who originally read this message, that church was going through some really difficult times. It was trying for them under severe persecution. Their brothers and sisters in Christ were being put to death. They were being put on trial. They were being flogged. And the church was facing some really difficult times at this moment. And in light of that, I think the Hebrew writer knew you may be ready to give up. You may be losing heart, and you might be wanting to say, you know what, I'm done with this. I can't do this Christianity thing because it's too difficult. And so they were ready to give up, or maybe if not now, then a time was coming where they would be ready to, or they were going to feel discouraged. They were going to feel overwhelmed. They were going to feel beat down. And when that time comes, and when that time came, the Hebrew writer is saying to them, you need to remember something. You need to remember the witnesses. The very first verse says, therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, you need to remember these guys and these girls that persevered through trying circumstances in their lives. And I want to point out just a few key words from that, just that first phrase. Okay, so first of all, we have this word therefore. What's therefore mean? Well, it means that, hey, I've been saying something for a little while here now, and because of these things I've been saying, here's what I need you to do. So therefore points back to Hebrews chapter 11. In Hebrews chapter 11, we read about all these men and women who under trying circumstances and just, I mean, probably they could have been so ready to give up on God and turn their backs on Him. Instead, they kept the faith. They kept going despite those impossible circumstances. And so, therefore, points back to these guys, and we're going to be looking at them. But before we get there, there's this large cloud of witnesses that he talks about. And the word for cloud here is it's kind of this picture of, it's a really significant image. It's all encompassing. It fills the sky from end to end. You could also think of like a thick fog that surrounds you. Ever been in such a thick fog you can't even see your hand in front of your face? That's kind of what the Hebrew writer's getting at here. Like, it's so thick, it surrounds you, it's everywhere. And it's a word that describes this is the only place it appears in the New Testament. It describes a large group of people. All right? You ever been anywhere where you couldn't move? Think like Cedar Point, Disney World, it's like wall-to-wall people, and you're trying not to touch anybody. That's kind of what the Hebrew writer's getting at here, is that you are surrounded by such a multitude of people. And he's saying, when you grow weary, and you're going to grow weary, and when you feel yourself getting tired, and you're going to get tired, remember that you are surrounded by this huge multitude of people who lived before you and they're now witnesses in your own life. Now, let's talk about this word witness. What does that mean? Well, it can be used a couple of different ways. One way is it's someone who sees something, right? Like an eyewitness. Somebody sees something and they saw it happen and they can tell you about it. And some think that's the idea here, that up in heaven there are all these people who are rooting for us and cheering us on, and they're watching us day in and day out. They're watching what we're doing. And I know a lot of people, they find comfort in thinking, my mom is watching over me, or my dad's watching over me, or my grandparents are watching over me. And I want to tell you right now, that's hooey. Your parents aren't watching over you, I'm sorry. Your grandparents are not watching over you. Who's watching over you? Yep, it's God. God is the one who watches over you. God is the one who protects you. God is the one who speaks into your life. And I know you may find comfort in that, but I want to tell you, they're not up there watching you. I don't know that when we get to heaven, I don't know that we're going to, I hate to put it so crassly, but I don't think we're going to be worried about what's going on down here on earth. We are going to be at the throne of Jesus Christ. God is on the throne with Jesus at his right hand. Do you really think I'm going to be worried about what my son is doing on earth? No way. This is the man that died for me. I'm going to be worshiping him. And so God is the one who's watching out for us, okay? What do I think this means? Well, the other interpretation of the word for witness is it means that somebody who says something, somebody who speaks something, somebody that has a message for us. And in this case, I believe the Hebrew writer is saying this: we are surrounded by such a great cloud of people who have gone before us that they are speaking to us. They're saying something to us. They have a message for us. I lean toward this interpretation because, again, you go back to Hebrews chapter 11, and in Hebrews chapter 11, you find this verb for witness 5 times. And the first time it's used, actually the first 2 times it's used, it comes in verse 4. Look at what this says. Verse 4 of Hebrews chapter 11. By faith, Abel offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain did. By faith, he was approved. Now, this word for approved is witnessed. People saw it and they spoke about it. He was approved as a righteous man because God approved his gifts. God witnessed his gifts. He saw those gifts and he talked about it. Now, look at this. Even though he's dead, even though Abel is dead, he's still what? Yeah, he still speaks. He still talks through his faith. His message is still there. Do you hear Abel's voice? No. But we can go back and we can read the scriptures. We can read about Abel, and there's a message for us. Even though he's dead, he's still saying something to us. When I do a funeral service, typically I like to ask the question at the end of the service, what would this deceased person have to say for us today? What kind of message, because of the way they lived or the things they said or the impact they had in this world, what do they have to say for us? That's what the Hebrew writer is getting at. What do these men and women have to say for our lives, and how can we apply it, and how can we take courage in it so that we don't grow weary and so that we don't give up and lose faith? What are their messages? And so that's the questions. As you read through Hebrews 11, the question you should ask is, what is the message that each of these men and women is trying to give to us? And so I'm going to just give you 3 examples because there's a lot in Hebrews chapter 11. And I want you to read that sometime on your own. Read through Hebrews 11, ask the question, what's the message for me? And we'll go through these pretty quickly here. And I hope you'll take some notes, get your bulletins out, find that message page where you can fill in some blanks. Okay, so let's just jump in. I'll give you 3 examples. We'll start with Noah. Look at verse 7. By faith, Noah, after he was warned about what was not yet seen. What was not yet seen? Yep, good. Man, you guys are awesome. Rain. It had not rained on the earth yet. Noah is around, okay? Where am I at? He was warned about what was not yet seen, and motivated by godly fear, he built an ark to deliver his family. Now, do you know how long it took Noah to build the ark? A year? Was it a year? A couple years maybe? Would you say 5? What'd you say, Dave? 120 years. Took him over 100 years to build this big boat, and could you imagine? It's never rained. He had never seen rain. Nobody on the earth had ever seen rain. He's in the middle of nowhere. It's not like he's going to, ship it out to sea and get on there. And no, he's waiting for rain. Can you imagine? I mean, my wife would have been like, dude, I'm out of here. 120 years to build an addition to your house? No, it's not going to work, right? And so Noah takes 120 years to build this ark, and it's no wonder people show up to make fun of him and to ridicule him and say, dude, what are you thinking, man? We don't even know what rain is, so why are you doing this? Yet Noah just keeps doing what God has asked him to do. We're going to keep this thing moving along. I know this project is huge, but we're going to keep doing it. God has a plan. And so I think Noah's message to us as a witness, his witness in our lives is, I know you're tired. And I know you're worn out, and I know that maybe things in life aren't moving as quickly as you would like them to move, and it seems like it's taking forever to get there, and God has all these promises and things like that, and you know it's going to happen, but it's just taking longer than you think. Noah is saying to us, listen, the rain will come. It'll happen. Because God's timing is always right. You agree with that? Rarely is God ever early. Rarely is God ever late. It's like perfect timing every time. He's never late, really. It's always right. So write this in your notes. Sometimes faith just means waiting. It just means waiting. And we don't like to wait, right? For me, waiting in traffic, that's the worst for me. I hate waiting at red lights. I hate waiting for people to drive the speed limit. I hate waiting. We just don't want to wait. And then when things go wrong in our lives and we go through these trying circumstances, we don't want to wait. But Noah's saying to us, don't worry, it'll happen. Just wait. Let's look at the next one, Abraham. Look at verse 8, just the very next verse, Abraham. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed and set out for a place that he was going to receive as an inheritance. He went out even though he did not know where he was going. Can you imagine? God comes to you and says, man, I need you to pack up everything you have, leave everything you know, and just start walking. Just start driving. Where are we going to stop for dinner? What about rest stops? Where are we even going? We love to do that to our kids, right? Get in the car, let's go. And sometimes we surprise them with ice cream or something. It's kind of fun. But as adults, man, we need to know. We need to know the details. And for Abraham, I just can only imagine, Lord, where are you leading me? That I got to pack up all this stuff. He's a wealthy man, and leave everything I know and just go where you're going to show me. This is crazy. We have this deep desire to know every step of the way, and we need to know exactly where we're going. And I think a lot of us, we sit back and we think, man, it'd be great if God would come and just sit with me for a little while and tell me exactly where to go, when to go, how to go, and those kinds of things. Wouldn't that be nice if he just laid it all out for us? And then sometimes I wonder, even if he did that, would we really do it? That's too extreme, Lord, right? I don't know. But Abraham didn't question it. He just packed up everything he had and he left. And so maybe you find yourself trying to figure out what is God's purpose in my life, and I just feel like I'm blind all the time, and I'm trying to live my life for Him, and I'm trying to figure out what His will is for me, and I think I'm on the right path to get there, and you're not really sure where it's all leading to, and sometimes you wonder if you are maybe on the right path. And so in these moments where you just feel kind of lost and like, where am I going? What's God have in store for me? These are opportunities for faith, to keep it going and to figure it out what God wants for your life. I look at verse 11, Sarah. We read about Abraham's wife, Sarah, and she finds out in her old barren age that she's going to become a mother. And she's like, this is crazy. Verse 12 says that Abraham was so old that he was as good as dead. What a description, right? Like, man, you're like 1 foot in the grave, right? So here they are, Sarah in verse 11, even though all of this was going on, she considered that the one who had promised, that God is what? Yeah, he's faithful. He's going to carry through on his promises. And she believed that God would do this, that on paper, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Physically, there's no way. It just seems impossible. But in Sarah's mind, you know what? God said it. And what God says he will do, he will do it. He will carry through on his promises. And so the challenge for us is not to give up when we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen. We might not know how it's all going to work out. But we go back, and we should have started maybe with this verse, Hebrews 11:1, what faith is, and it's the reality of what's hoped for and the proof of what's not seen. Even though we can't see it, even though we can't touch it, we know it's there. That's what faith is. And so sometimes faith means, write this in your notes, to just keep moving forward, even when it doesn't maybe make sense, but you know God's in charge and he's leading you there. So Abraham's message to us, Sarah's message to us is, even though you may not know where God is leading you in particular, and even though you don't know when you'll get there, how you'll get there, he's saying, don't lose faith. Keep the faith. Get off the bench. Put down the water bottle. Get back in the game and keep moving forward. And just keep going. Don't give up. I like that message. Now, I'll get to the last one, Joseph. Down in verse 22. Joseph, by faith, Joseph, as he was nearing the end of his life, mentioned the exodus of the Israelites and gave instructions concerning his bones. Now, I look at Joseph's life. I think if you look at the overall picture of a person's life, Joseph may have had one of the worst lives in the Bible. His brothers hated him so much that they faked his death and sold him into slavery. He gets down, the Ishmaelites didn't even want to keep him, so they sell him off to the Egyptians, and so here you go. Now he gets down to Egypt, and his boss's wife is lusting after him, and she wants him to go to bed with her, and he refuses, and what happens? She gets him thrown into jail. So Joseph's sitting in jail now, like the lowest of the low, and while he's in jail, he makes a couple of prison buddies. Those guys get out of jail. One goes to his death. The other is raised to his position with the king again. You know what they did? They forgot about Joseph. They had an opportunity to get Joseph out of jail. They forgot about him until years down the road. On and on and on. You look at Joseph's life, man, he could have complained. He could have thrown a pity party. He could have done all this other stuff that we like to do when we get down, when life throws us curveballs. Yet when you study Joseph's life, he keeps the faith. He kept the faith all the way through. He didn't feel sorry for himself. He didn't throw any pity parties. In fact, he saw God at work in his life every step of the way, and he even saw how God was going to work in the future for the whole nation of Israel. He's on his deathbed, and he's looking 400 years down the road and what was going to happen, that the Israelites were going to leave Egypt, get out of Egypt, this exodus, and that they were even going to carry Joseph's own bones from there into this new land. 400 years down the road. That's how much faith Joseph had. At the end of his life, when his brothers come back, they think Joseph's has it out for them, and he tells them, no, man. What you guys meant for harm, what you guys meant for evil, God used it for good. This is huge. So sometimes, write this in your notes, sometimes faith means that we've got to gain some godly perspective. Make sure you put that godly part in there. We've got to gain some godly perspective. What is God doing through this action and through this moment, through this crisis, through these terrible, tough times that are going on in our lives? What is that? Maybe sometimes you feel like you're the only one who's going through it, and you're the only one that's got tough circumstances going on in your life. No one understands, or no one else understands what you're going through, and the big question you're asking is why? Why do I have to go through this, right? And so it's easy, I think, for us sometimes to play the victim card. You know people like this? We love to play the victim. It's easy to blame others. It's easy to blame God, what's going on in our lives when times get tough. It's easy to become pessimistic and cynical. And it's easy to become we start surrounding ourselves by other people who feel the same way we do, who are also pessimistic and cynical and grumpy. And so what happens? We feed off of each other, and so it worsens our mood. And then sometimes when we're like down in the dumps like that, we see a change that needs to be made, but we don't do anything about it because we don't think anybody will care. And so you do nothing except the one thing we're all good at, and that is complaining. Right? We love to complain. And so we're angry because nobody's feeling sorry for us anymore and nobody's helping us out anymore. And we're angry and we feel cheated because we constantly compare ourselves with other people who have more than we have or have things that we don't have, that we can't get because we can't afford it. And so we spiral downwards. And so playing the victim card leads to nowhere. We lose the giant perspective that God has a plan and a purpose for this. Romans 8:28, He will work together for the good in all things of those who love Him. And so we've got to keep that mindset, this perspective, this godly perspective. And so I think Joseph is telling us, man, when you get in that mindset, when you start feeling sorry for yourself and you're throwing yourself a pity party and you're complaining that the world is against you, I think he's just saying, you know what, just stop it. Knock it off, for your own sake. Just stop. For the sake of other people in your lives, just stop. They don't want to hear it. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. I know what happened to you wasn't right. It wasn't fair. It didn't feel good, but what happened. What you're going through is what you're going through. We like to say it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. It happened. And so this is not the time to throw your hands in the air and give up and throw in the towel and quit. Because listen, God is still writing your story. He is still writing your story. And you may not see it, but what others meant for evil in your life, what Satan means for evil in your life, God is going to use for good. And you may not see that right now, you may not understand it right now, but have faith, gain perspective. Don't give up. Okay, so now throughout Hebrews chapter 11, we have all these stories, and we read about these men and even women who went through some really trying times in their lives. And when you really meditate on this, some of these heroes of the faith, man, they really blew it morally, didn't they? You read their lives, you go, well, this guy and that guy, Noah got drunk after the flood and everything. He got drunk on some wine, and it was bad. And then King David, he had this affair with this lady, and he even had a man killed. Abraham told a bunch of lies throughout his lifetime. Moses was a murderer. Rahab, remember Rahab? What was Rahab? In Jericho, she was a prostitute. I mean, how can God use these people, right? This is the worst of the worst. And you may think, I've blown it. Maybe you think you've blown it. But listen, God forgives. And what's encouraging is that God can and still will use you in mighty ways. And we've got this large cloud of witnesses surrounding us who can testify to that. And they're all in the stands in heaven, and they're chanting. We can maybe hear them. Don't give up, don't give in. Don't give up, don't give in. Don't give up, don't give in. And they're encouraging us to keep going because they did it, we can too. Sometimes we'll have to wait. Sometimes we'll have to push ourselves to keep moving forward. Sometimes we'll have to gain perspective. And sometimes we're going to have to do all three. And it's going to be tough, but with God's help, we can keep the faith. So the challenge for us is to turn our eyes away from all these distractions, to turn our eyes away from these trying circumstances and really keep the focus on Jesus who can get us through it. I want to close by reading the last few verses of chapter 11, because I think we sometimes need perspective. And I'm not downplaying what you're going through. It's tough, but here's some perspective, okay? Verse 36 in chapter 11. It says, others experienced mockings and scourgings, as well as bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned. They were sawed in two. They died by the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins and destitute, afflicted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and on mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. You got it bad? That's tough. Yeah, my life's bad, but some of this stuff, man, I don't know. How they didn't turn their backs on God is amazing. We got it so easy here in the United States of America, freedom of religion, freedom to do what we want. When it comes to God and our faith, these people were sawn in two, they were stabbed with swords, and on and on. You just imagine the worst. So the Hebrew writer says in chapter 12, because we've got this such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and the perfecter of our faith. And so that's what I want to invite you to this morning, that you would be able to turn your full attention to Jesus every day, not just in this room, but when you leave here today and you go home and you go to your workplace and you do your own thing in your hobbies and stuff, that you would keep your focus on Jesus. And if you haven't given your life to Jesus, I invite you to that this morning as well, that you would confess Him as your Lord and Savior, that you would be baptized, and that you would walk out of here a brand new person today. I invite you to that this morning. So let's stand together. Let's sing this song. If you want to do that, come and meet me down here in the front.